This is the BBC.
Hiya mate, I'm just ringing up about my council tax.
Yeah?
What's the procedure if you don't want to pay it?
Well, everyone has to pay the council tax, that's what the law says.
You won't have read this in the mainstream media, but 17 years ago, the Queen was deposed, and since then all official bodies like Parliament, the courts and the police lost their authority. They're just fake institutions now, pretending to run things. Or at least that's what tens of thousands of people, online and off, believe. Like this man, they argue they don't need to obey any laws passed by Parliament or pay any fines or taxes.
If you're telling me I have to pay council tax and I'm telling you I don't...
It all comes down to Magna Carta.
Magna Carta Article 61 and its
So could they be right? Could an 800-year-old treaty hold the key to why so many people in this country feel that the system just isn't working for them?
So where does the council stand in relation to Article 61 of Magna Carta?
I don't know anything about Article 61.
Article 61 Magna Carta is a very important thing, and it was, you know, the Baron's position.
Well, put on the spot, most of us are pretty vague about Magna Carta. To remind you, it was a treaty signed between King John and a committee of barons in 1215. The people who think it's the key to our current troubles centre around a Facebook group called Practical Lawful Dissent, which has around 13,000 members. I discovered it about a year ago and I've been trying to follow it ever since. The group's run by a man called David Robinson. He was really suspicious of the BBC, but he eventually agreed to give me an interview. He's tall, thin, in late middle age, with a moustache and a greying ponytail. He has muscular dystrophy and lives in a flat in an assisted living complex, but he keeps pretty active. First, I had to sign a long agreement to report without intent to deceive the public.
We will hold you to it if you don't abide by it, obviously.
What will happen?
Well, I'm not going to let you get away with it. I'm going to seize your home or something. That, you know, we're going to put you on trial publicly or something. I mean, we don't want to do that, Jolyon. All we want you to do is report the truth.
So first things first, what is Article 61 of Magna Carta?
It's the security clause in case corruption, tyranny rises in the country, and it's a remedy against it.
Article 61 was the last clause of Magna Carta, and it said that if the king broke his side of the bargain, then a committee of the barons could petition the king, and if the king didn't put things right within 40 days, the barons could then seize the king's property. It was all a long time ago, but in 2001, a group of members of the House of Lords, barons, tried to invoke Article 61. They were concerned about the EU and the Treaty of Nice.
They had come to the conclusion that by the alleged monarch ratifying the Nice Treaty, this would be treason. So what they did was they petitioned the monarch, and when she didn't respond, they invoked Article 61, which means we all have a duty to reject the Crown and its institutions.
You said the alleged monarch.
Yes.
So you think that the Queen is not legitimately the Queen?
Well, she is no longer, because she breached her coronation oath, not least of when she ratified the Treaty of Nice.
So let's just stop for a moment for a fact check. Although the Lawful Rebellion people often go on about the coronation oath, the wording's actually pretty vague. The Queen only promised to govern her subjects worldwide, quote, according to their respective laws and traditions. Magna Carta itself says nothing about sovereignty or other nations. And finally, hardly any of Magna Carta is still in force. Article 61 was dropped from the 1216 version a year later. But the rebels are sure it's still valid.
It allows the barons to distress and distrain the regime, the monarch, so by seizing castles, buildings, and basically reject the monarch until remedy has been achieved.
So the barons could seize the Queen's property, in theory?
Well, in theory, everybody in the land has the lawful excuse to seize the Queen's property, yes.
With the Queen having deposed herself because she didn't reply to the barons' petition, the rebels now swear an oath to the barons themselves. It became pretty clear to me that no one in the group was really going to talk to me unless I also signed an oath. So 2 members, Sharon Long and Tim Bunyard, prepared an oath to Lord Craig Mile.
If you would like to fill that in, I'll happily witness your signature.
In full knowledge of treason being committed by Parliament by delivering the sovereign peoples of this common law land into the hands of foreign powers by which institution without deviation, yours without dishonour, ill will or frivolity. Okay, so I shall sign this and see what happens.
There we go.
Blimey.
Welcome.
Unfortunately, I think I left my oath on a train. But apparently it doesn't matter whether or not the barons ever receive your oath. The point is that you declare to the world that you no longer recognise any arm of the state as lawful. In the world of lawful rebellion, you only have to obey what the rebels call common law, which has nothing to do with what lawyers call common law, which is law made by the courts. In the rebel mind, common law is a kind of unwritten natural justice based around not harming other people. OK, this might all seem fantastical, but to a lot of people who feel they've drawn the short straw in life, it makes a great deal of sense. People like Pauline Robinson.
I was an emergency call operator. I worked 4 on 4 off, 12-hour shifts for a pittance of pay. But it was job satisfaction that kept me there. And then we were made redundant. We thought, no, they're never going to do that. They need emergency call handlers, don't they? Well, at the end of the day, they didn't need us badly enough and they got rid big time. I had another redundancy 12 months after that, 2 redundancies in as many years. But then I found Lawful Rebellion and it all slotted into place for me. When I read that site, I thought, this is it.
Do you mean it provides a kind of explanation?
Yes. For feelings that I'd had a long time ago when I knew something wasn't quite right going on, but I couldn't put my finger on what it was. I can't believe that the whole of the country doesn't know about Article 61 being invoked by the barons of the House of Lords. Article 61 in the Magna Carta, I think, is the only way we can possibly, peacefully, lawfully save this country. The evidence is overwhelming. Overwhelming.
Pauline isn't paying council tax, nor is Sharon Long, who works as a taxi driver in Devon.
The stage I'm at now is, it's been to the courts, it's been to the bailiffs. The bailiffs have now referred it back to the council.
How much do they think you owe in total then?
2,600 and something. And costs for the bailiffs. I'm not going to pay them, I'm withholding them. If they had reason to arrest me, then obviously I would go with them, I wouldn't fight it. But I wouldn't accept anything, any of their demands, and I wouldn't accept what they're saying.
Yeah, but if they say, sorry, we're not interested in your Article 61 arguments.
Well, they'll be put on notice for treason, and they'll be on the national database for that.
Have you got a national database of traitors?
Yes.
Who keeps that?
I don't know if I want to say, actually. It's another person in the group.
Deny who keeps
No.
There is a national database of traitors.
There is, certainly.
There is. I mean, we pay their wages. But I've had nothing back from the council. I get my bin emptied, that's it. So where's all my return on everything that I've paid into the establishment? Where is my return?
Well, I suppose council tax pays for things other than bins, doesn't it? I mean, it
pays for their wages.
All over the country, people, many of them feeling seriously left behind, have stopped paying their taxes or their parking tickets and speeding fines and not turning up to court when summoned, because the courts are not real courts. David Robinson came up with a procedure for dealing with the authorities. Apart from signing the oath, you have to put the authorities on notice of their treachery, and every time you get an official communication from a court, say you send them a letter referencing the Article 61 rebellion. Does it work? David Robinson points to some minor cases where the authorities seem to have dropped a case or given up. But in June, one of the core Lawful Rebellion members put it to a serious test. Ollie Pinnock is a professional boxer from Essex.
I felt that certain bills we were receiving were too high, such as council tax. So I just began to look into the council tax and how it works and the laws in this country and how they work. Being at a financial loss every month spurred me to look into what I could do to change it.
Ollie refused to pay the council tax unless the council agreed that Article 61 was in force, and he sent off all the David Robinson-approved letters. And since council tax is a civil matter, he thought he was safe from the police. But then...
I was at the gym and I got a phone call from my wife, who's here at home with the children, and she phoned me up to say that there were police at the door. So I came home from the gym, and I parked my car away from the house and walked down the road and was confronted by a police officer and a warrant officer from a private bailiff company, who said he had a no bail warrant from the magistrates for non-payment of council tax to issue my arrest.
He was taken to the police station.
I was placed into a cell for the next 24 hours.
Meanwhile, David Robinson and 2 other rebels dashed to Essex in support and recorded a video message.
OK, we're here outside Southend Police Station. They've got no charges against him whatsoever because he's done nothing wrong whatsoever. And this is an outrage. We can't allow this to go on. Thanks to the people that turned up, there's nothing much we could do because we can't even get into the building. No one's going to talk to us. So we kind of wasted our time.
Thank you to the people that did turn up.
Yeah. I do.
And then you were taken to a court?
I was taken to a room in the police station and sat down in front of a chair with a TV screen in front of me and told me that I was in court via video link. It was like a secret court. I was flabbergasted that these things go on in this country. When the TV screen came on, I was confronted by 2 magistrates and a council prosecutor and a council witness. I explained to them that I was standing under Magna Carta Article 61. I was laughed at, so I just continued to refute their jurisdiction, and they retired for 10 minutes and came back and sentenced me to 25 days in prison. In prison, yeah.
It turned out that willful non-payment of council tax can land you in prison, not because it's a criminal offence, but to put the screws on you. Ollie Pinnock decided not to be Article 61's first martyr.
I just thought to myself, you know what, if it was just me on my own, I would have gone to prison and I would have tried to make a point about that. But if it wasn't for my children, they're in senior school at the moment, and obviously under duress, I decided to pay.
I think it's been reported that a family member paid and people assume it was your mother.
No, it was my father, actually, and my father, he knew about it from day one, and he was the one who came and paid for it at last moment.
It was a turning point for the movement because now that's the first time that they've publicly and blatantly aided and abetted high treason.
But if you are going to be an effective resistance movement, like there have been in the past through history, you surely have to be prepared to go to prison.
Well, we do. I'm quite prepared myself.
So are you withholding council tax?
I don't pay council tax because I'm on a disability allowance. Well, I don't get the disability. They've since acted against me in fraud and denying my entitlements to disability allowance, even though I've been disabled for the last 25 years.
So it is being paid on your behalf?
Well, I guess so, yeah.
As 2017 progressed, the rebels just kept losing again and again, and usually having to pay more than if they'd paid up in the first place. So where were the barons in all this, the ones who had allegedly deposed the Queen in 2001? Well, time has done its work. Some are now dead, some have dementia, and some have forgotten all about the petition. The rest tend to ignore the lawful rebellion people who send them oaths. One of the few who do engage is Lord Craig Mile, the man I swore my oath to. And even he doesn't really remember much about the petition.
I do remember putting my signature on it, and I remember being a little bit disappointed that I didn't hear anything about it.
When did you start getting letters from the Article 61 lawful rebellion movement?
I'm not sure. The curious thing is the letters went to the home, which was my father's home at the time he died, which is in the Hebrides. And I'm not always there. I turned up maybe a couple of years ago and found some of these letters there. They have increased since, maybe about 1,000 by now.
He had the latest batch on his desk.
And this is, I haven't looked at it yet. There you go. He's got an envelope saying my oath and quite a chunky, I don't know, sort of 15-page letter that comes with it.
So he is actually saying that he is transferring his allegiance from the Queen to the Barons Committee.
The Barons Committee.
Which he considers you to be a member.
Yes, but there's no committee standing, as far as I understand.
You seem a slightly reluctant figurehead for such a rebellion.
I don't think I'm a figurehead.
Well, I think you are to them.
Well, I'm not sure that I can completely concur with all their hopes and aspirations, but I do feel sorry if people have the impression they've been disenfranchised from legal process.
But although the barons signed the petition, they didn't actually organise it themselves. It was dreamed up by a group of hardcore Eurosceptics calling themselves the Magna Carta Society. One of them was a retired antiquarian bookseller, Greg Lance Watkins. Some of his friends wrote the petition.
Handwritten on vellum, using long-lasting inks, outlining the fundamental grievance of the people having been betrayed by their supposed leaders. The leading signatures were the direct descendants of those barons of 1215. As I recall, it was over 20.
So would it be fair to say that really the petition which you were part of organising was little more than a stunt?
I see a stunt as the sort of thing where people dress up as chickens and parade through the European Parliament.
So what do you think?
If you call it a stunt, by all means, but I think that is to demean a fairly serious piece of research.
And what do you think of the people who now look at that petition and say the fact that the Queen did not respond means that we should swear allegiance to the barons and we are not bound by any laws passed by Parliament? Have you had any dealings with these people?
No. Okay. Studiously avoided them.
So the rebels are relying on the fact that the Queen didn't properly reply to a letter 17 years ago that at the time was only really a bit of political theatre. In the middle of 2017, a real hard man turned up in the rebel group. His name was Robert White, in his late 50s.
I've been in and out of prison, done 6 prison sentences over the last 40 years, so I'm not worried about going to prison. I look back at that now as my apprenticeship for whatever's coming next.
I went to see him in Kent.
Got released last year.
Last year?
It's my own fault, yeah. I had a drink driving thing. I had an accident with a motorbike. 16 months for it.
Did you hurt anyone?
Yeah, he was badly hurt and I deserve to go inside for that.
White quickly became an active member of the group, refusing to pay his council tax and sending off the rebel paperwork.
This is the oaths. I've sent two in my name. Done one for my wife as well. That's the only thing I could get her to sign. She doesn't really understand it. But
who do you think is a traitor then now?
Well, obviously the Queen is.
The MPs as well, presumably?
Obviously the MPs, yeah.
What about Swale Borough Council? Would they be guilty of treason?
They are, because they haven't read my notices properly and agreed that Article 61 has been invoked.
What's going to happen to them when your lot take over? Are they going to be hanged?
I have volunteered to be a hangman, but...
Seriously?
Yeah. I'd quite enjoy doing something like that.
As well as his taxes, Robert White is being chased for historic business rates for a failed nightclub he used to run. At the time we met in July, he was facing bankruptcy proceedings for £42,000. 2 days previously, there'd been a court hearing, which of course he didn't turn up to.
They're not lawful courts.
Do you know what happened at the court hearing?
No, not yet. No, I'm waiting for the letter.
Do you think you're bankrupt?
Well, in their eyes, yeah.
You say in their eyes, but
yeah.
in reality, might you not lose this house?
That would be what they're trying to do, I suppose, yeah.
White was made bankrupt. In September, a trustee in bankruptcy was appointed who asked him for information about his affairs. The man wrote, "I really do hope you'll see fit to offer me your cooperation." White replied, "There's only one way you'll beat me. You'll have to kill me. Your name has been added to the long list of traitors you will be dealt with when the time is right." When I spoke to him a few weeks later, he was still defiant.
I've given nothing, no information at all. I don't even know my date of birth.
Does that mean all your assets are in the hands of the insolvency service, effectively?
I would be if I consented to it, yeah, but I haven't consented to it. My bank account's still open because they don't know where it is.
He spoke too soon. On the 25th of October, his account was frozen. The movement's victories seemed pretty elusive, and it wasn't just happening on Facebook. In the real world, people have been talking about this stuff. I found a woman in Swindon who runs a furniture removal business, Lucy Shavliuk. She's also studying for a law degree. She joined the Lawful Rebellion Facebook group, but David Robinson kicked her off because she started questioning his concept of common law.
I knew from the start it was complete nonsense. But since then, I've noticed that this specific group grew significantly. And it's actually getting into my industry as well.
You mean you meet people in the normal course of your work who say this kind of stuff?
Sure. Recently, someone was advised by this Lawful Rebellion supporter that there is a way of not paying £15,000 to HMRC.
Someone in the removals business?
Yes.
Do you think it's being discussed offline as well?
Absolutely, yes. But they keep losing cases. We're not talking about millionaires or someone like that. No, it's just ordinary people, vulnerable to begin with, in debt to begin with, and yet still losing money. And the concept is so strong, I think, is that even after you're lost, they still believe they're right. So it is dangerous, it's growing, and someone really needs to look into it.
For months, the group considered its next step. The authorities just weren't taking any notice of them. But according to their interpretation of Article 61, they were entitled to seize Crown property. Maybe this was what they needed to do. They talked online about seizing a building, but nothing ever happened. Robert White seemed to be the ringleader of the plan.
We've set up a secret group of members who are willing to go ahead and do it.
Have you chosen a building?
We've got somewhere in mind, yeah.
Finally, they found the right cause. In Birmingham, a man called David Robotham had been convicted of cannabis cultivation and sentenced to 18 months prison. But the court also fined him £18,000 under the Proceeds of Crime Act. He didn't pay.
I obviously haven't got the money and I haven't got access to it. Nobody will give me a loan. I'm a 60-year-old man. I'm in Villa Health. I can't work. I'm just like dead in the water, really. They just want me property and that's it. My wife is kind of like saying, even though I have actually tried to put my house up for sale, she's saying to me, I don't want to sell. Why should I sell? This is nothing to do with me. You're displacing me and the whole family.
You've had to move out?
Well, I've had to move out. Like I've been on people's couches and things now for the last 2 months.
He was ordered back to Birmingham Magistrates Court in September to explain why he hadn't paid the fine or risk going back to prison. Instead, he sent a friend along, Rory Darcy.
2 security guards came and sat in the court prior to me walking in. And then when I got into the court, the judges asked me where David Robotham was. I presented him in the form of his birth certificate, stated who I was. The judges instantly tried to dismiss me. Security tried to remove me and assaulted me in the process. I then asked who had jurisdiction in the court, to which point they got up and abandoned the court. So then at the end I says, OK, case dismissed. And
so you assumed jurisdiction?
Assumed jurisdiction as no one else had assumed it, and they fled the court. So I pointed out to the security, if they put their hands on me, they're breaking common law. And then eventually we left the court and chucked out the building.
So in October, David Robotham goes on the run, defying a warrant for his arrest. This is the rebels' moment. On the secret website, they launch Operation Distraint. The people will be using their constitutional laws to seize and occupy a government-owned building. The building, Birmingham Magistrates Court.
This is your call to action. We have now set a date for Birmingham. Everything is in place. So please come and get involved.
At the end of November, rebels from across the country converge on the designated meeting place, the Crown Pub near Birmingham Magistrates Court. They're upbeat.
We're here to wake people up to the fact that we need to make a stand against a tyrannous government.
But do you think the court is going to be distrained and distressed?
If there's mass numbers, we can do it, you know what I mean?
Which court we go to, I don't know.
Robert White, the bankrupt from Kent, has come prepared.
I've got a bag of food and water here, ready for a few days at least.
So, it's mostly water.
Beans, water, bog roll, of course. Yeah.
What's in that silver packet?
That's dates.
Dates? Yeah. Organic?
Yeah, it's just mine.
Oh, just for you? Okay. You're going to share it?
If someone's desperate.
One person not present is David Robotham, the man whose drugs conviction is at the centre of the protest. He's still evading arrest, but friend Rory is here.
So far, they seized the house, so Dave couldn't sell the house. They seized a couple of his cars for no apparent reason outside of his mother's house, and one of his brother's cars as well.
Doesn't look good, does it?
Essentially, no.
Already, though, the day's agenda has shifted. Now, instead of going straight to seize the court, they're going to the police station first.
I've got evidence against 4 individuals of the Birmingham Magistrates Court aiding and abetting high treason.
Supposing they say go away.
What choice do we have but to take the law into our own hands?
Meaning what?
Meaning that we may have to go and close the place down ourselves.
Magistrates Court?
We may have to. We have lawful excuse. It says it in Magna Carta.
But there are only about 40 rebels present.
Can I have everyone's attention, please? We were hoping for a lot more people to turn up, but there's still quite a bunch of us. And what I'd like to suggest that we do is to go down to the police headquarters and to lobby the police. Okay?
Yeah. Here.
You look frustrated.
I'm a little bit, to be honest. Well, because there's not enough people here, and we're having to sort of be a bit compliant in a way, but we're trying to keep the peace.
But plan B was to then go and occupy.
But there's not enough of us to go and actually do that. It's just, I don't know, Johnny.
We walk down to the West Midlands Police Headquarters, but only 4 of us are allowed in.
I'd like to speak to a senior officer, please.
We'd like to report a crime.
I'd like to speak to the Chief Inspector.
We've just asked for a Chief Constable. I can tell you now, Chief Constable won't come down.
In the end, a sergeant opens up a small interview room and we squeeze in. David Robinson hands over a pile of paperwork outlining the case against the Birmingham Magistrates Court officials.
The actual summary is this. David is standing under British constitutional law in lawful rebellion. He has given evidence to the courts that they have no authority, since the Crown has no authority, since Article 61 of the Magna Carta.
What offence are you accusing these people of?
Aiding and abetting high treason.
If you'd like to leave me your evidence bundle, clearly there's 2 things I need to do. One is research what evidence you're presenting before me, and then we'll take it forward if there is a case to answer.
Well, the problem is, we're sick and tired of being ignored.
That is as much as you're going to get from me right now. Thank you for your time. Thank you for coming in. It won't be ignored.
Let's go back to the pub and have a quick chat.
Seizing the court is off the agenda for now.
Well, first of all, I'd like to say thank you guys for turning up. We didn't get as far as we'd like to have got with the police, but at least they allowed us to record the reporting of these crimes. I guess that's, at least we're getting somewhere. Now, we may have to reconvene at a future time where we may have to take further action, which may include seizing buildings. And that's about it, really, guys. I'm just a spokesperson for all of you guys. So.
On Facebook, everyone agrees the day was a triumph. But in the weeks that follow, the rebels keep getting arrested, fined and locked up by the authorities who just don't care about Article 61. You can't doubt the rebels' sense of grievance, but for how long they can carry on seeing all failure as success is hard to say.